Hello, future Boilermakers, and welcome to our live Q&A broadcast about two majors, animation and visual effects, as well as game development and design. Both are majors in the Department of Computer Graphics Technology at Purdue University. To all of the students who have been admitted to Purdue, congratulations. A very warm welcome to everyone watching tonight. My name is Tony Munguia, and I'm the Director of Recruitment, Retention, and Diversity in the Purdue Polytechnic. Now, you can submit questions via the YouTube chat window by signing into your Google account and typing them in. Our technical director, John O'Malley, will be monitoring the chat, and we will do our very best to answer your questions. If we don't get to your questions tonight, please feel free to send a follow-up email to techrecruit@purdue.edu, and we will respond later on. Give us a day or two at least. Now, before we start today's discussion, I'd like to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves. Let's start with the professors who are here tonight. Would you please tell us your name and a little bit about the courses you teach? Hello, Alex. Let's start with you.
Hi, hello everyone. Thank you for attending this talk. Um, as you can see, I'm Alex Demarjan. I teach game development courses. A little bit about my background. I've made games on pretty much every console since the PlayStation 3, as well as made a lot of VR and AR games for medical simulations. Received my PhD from IIT, and I'm really excited to talk to you all.
Thank you, Alex. Good evening, Nandini. You're next.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending this session today. I'm Nandini Giri, and I'm an assistant professor at the Computer Graphics Technology Department. My work focuses mainly within human-computer interaction in animation and games. And the courses I teach focus on player-centered design for games and also on design futures, on speculative design for interactive media, animation, and games. I really look forward to your questions and interactions today. Thank you.
Thank you, Nandini. Hello, Derek. I believe you're in your car now, so we'll hear from you, but not see you. So introduce yourself.
Hello, future Boilermakers. My name is Derek Larson. I teach mainly 2D animation, some introductory core courses like Animation Foundations. My research is primarily in uh, storytelling, narrative animation, documentary, and I received my MFA from Yale in art, and I'm looking forward to meeting you.
Thank you. Hi there, Daniel.
Hi, my name is Dan Triplett. I was a game professional for over 6 years, a senior artist and art lead. And then I decided to get some more education and ended up at Purdue. I teach within games, VFX, and animation. And I hope you all come in and learn some really cool stuff that we do.
Thank you. And last but not least, David. Or Dave.
Hi, everybody. My name is David Whittinghill. I'm the senior most guy in the game major. I'm a programmer type guy. Can't draw. Wish I could. Um, but I am pretty good at writing code and managing teams. So I teach the introductory game development class, and then in the project class later on, I will help you all work on your big, fancy, dramatic projects. And then I also teach classes at the graduate level with the advanced stuff. And I teach game production, which is how you can be a team leader.
Okay, thank you. We have a current student with us tonight as well. Aiden, would you please tell us where you're from, uh, why you chose your major, and why you picked Purdue for that major?
Hi everyone, I'm Ian James. I'm a sophomore in animation with a minor in studio art. And I'm from Fishers, Indiana, and I chose my major because I was really interested in like the narrative aspects of animation. I really like that it's the most fluid form of storytelling out there. And I picked Purdue because it provides so many opportunities.
Okay, thank you. And welcome, everyone. As we begin, I want to tell you about the short names for our programs that we will be using during our conversation tonight. When we talk about animation or visual effects, we will always be referring to one major that is formally known as animation and visual effects. And when we talk about games or game development, we will be referring to the major that is formally known as game development and design. One more thing you might hear us say frequently tonight is CGT, which is our shorthand for computer graphics technology, one of the departments here in the Purdue Polytechnic Institute at Purdue. CGT is the home department for both animation and game majors. Okay, the first question will be for you, Derek. Will you please tell us about the plan of study for students in our animation and visual effects major?
Sure. So for the incoming freshmen, we have a number of courses to expose you to various tools and technology that are in line with industry, and it really ranges. So we have digital illustration, sketching, a course called Animation Foundations that introduces the history, the principles of animation, and in that course, it's a fairly large course. We do a number of exercises with um, uh, tools that range from stop motion to 2D animation, 3D modeling, 3D animation. So in that way, in your freshman year, you experience a wide range of topics and tools to better understand what it is you might be interested in, um, and moving forward into your sophomore and junior years you begin to specialize so that in your senior year, your capstone year, you're working on something that is very specific to your portfolio and your direction as you work toward graduation, um, focusing on internships and jobs along the way. But uh, the, the first year, the freshman core year, we're focused on introducing you to a wide range of everything that's available within the department.
Okay, thank you. Dan, can you take this question for animation majors?
course.
So, okay.
Yeah, so the question was for students in animation, what does it mean to learn by doing? Do students attend classes that are lectures, and then the next day or two they go in the lab and applying what they learn? Well, to answer that, it depends on the format of the classroom. I'll give you a for instance. I teach a very, very large lecture class that's on geometric modeling. And so in that class, because the class is so large, because so many students take it, there is 2 lecture days, and then there is a lab day for each student. And the lab day is usually led by a TA, and the lectures are led by myself. And in that sense, yes, that would be the way that that happens. But I do make personally all of the training material for those classes, so I'm intimately involved in that in the creation and in the training. There's other classes that we do, which is like the flipped classroom. And what we call flipped classroom is basically like where you mix the lecture and the lab together. And a lot of times when what happens there, and it depends on the professor, because the professors, everyone's got a kind of a little bit different style on how they do things. I don't know how Derek does things. I haven't sat through any of his classes, but like Professor Hassan, who's not here right now, but he's another animation professor. He makes videos for all of the lessons, and he goes around, he has the students watch the videos, and then he works side by side with them to help them get through all of the content and learn stuff. So it just depends on the class and what the class is necessary for that class, because each topic can be a little bit different, and one way to do it might work in one class, and then another way or another class it might work a different way. So it's not really set in stone exactly how it means, but what it does mean is that you will be doing and creating. And that's, I guess, is the fundamental part, is that you'll be learning the technology and creating different works while you're learning the technology.
Okay, so the students are attending kind of the classes and more lectures first, and then maybe a day or two later, they'll go into a lab and apply what they learned in that lecture?
In like my 116 class, that's true, but I also teach VFX classes that are the flipped style, which means that I'll sometimes lecture for half of the class. Sometimes I'm a little wordy sometimes, so I can go a little bit longer. And then the students have time to actually work on the things that I'm lecturing about. However, I do try to always provide some kind of video content so that if they forgot something that I said, that they can always go back and check the video even if they're outside of the classroom.
Okay, thank you. Alex, let's start with you to talk about the game development major. What is the plan of study like, starting with the first year students and then the later on years?
So something that I kind of wanted to piggyback off of what Derek and Dan were saying, and this truly differentiates Purdue from other institutions, is that from the very beginning, when they come into our programs, they're doing the thing that they came there for. So, for example, in Intro to Games, they're learning about mechanics and theory and all of this really great stuff. And then they're actually sort of building their own little prototype before they even move on. So in other institutions, I've taught at many. You almost have to wait till your junior year before you even get to the meaty stuff of the reason why you're there. A lot of this has to do with thanks to Dr. Whittinghill or Dave. He created and designed this program, as well as a hush hush in the hopefully in the works graduate program coming up soon. So I'm actually going to pivot to him because he has a lot of exciting information that I'm sure he can share about the program itself.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, so when I joined Purdue, we didn't really have these majors. Everything was just CGT. And I just had so many students that wanted to do more with games. And so I begged and pleaded to have a major. And and my colleagues were like, okay, I guess if you feel somebody's interested, go ahead. And so we started with 9 students, and now, over many years later, y'all are going to be 217 strong. So it's been fun to watch the program grow. When we started, we just had a lot of classes that we thought would be useful in games, but we talk to people in the games industry, and I usually take my summers off to go work in the games industry. And what we try to do is make the plan of study resemble what it's like to work in the games industry. So, for instance, you're always working on a team. Nobody ever flies solo. And I bet you all don't like to hear that we're going to force you to do teamwork, but we're going to force you to do teamwork because that's how things are. And then, yeah, so a lot of teamwork, a lot of industry guests coming in and critiquing and coaching and helping you um, with all the little assignments you get along the way to make this animation or write this code or all the different things you have to do. We try to bring in the industry people to ground that so that what you do in class might feel like it doesn't have a connection, but these industry people will come in and say, oh yes, that definitely has a connection, and they can explain it to you. So yeah, our goal with the plan of study is in year 1, you learn the fundamentals, the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s of game development. So you're going to learn a little of everything. You're going to learn a little programming, a little art, little design. But by year 2, you're sampling different specialties, and you're getting a feel for what you really like and what you think you're going to be good at. And then on year 3, you're going to join a team where you are like, that is your role in the team. I'm the programmer, I'm the designer, whatever it is you do. And then you spend 2 years, your junior and senior year, working on this mega project with a team of people. that hopefully you've got a nice balance of skills, so you can make the game that you dream of, and then that game becomes your calling card that you get your job with. Um, this is something I probably shouldn't tell you, since we'd love to have you join us as students, but you know what? The game industry doesn't even care if you finish high school. If you can make good games, they are interested. Am I wrong, Alex? Am I wrong, Dan? No, what we teach you here is not only to make games, but to build a career. That's that's our value add to all of this. So not only will you make some cool games, but you're going to be making them for a long time, because you're going to learn the teamwork, and you're going to build the connections with industry people, and your own peers are going to go out and become industry people that will become part of your network. And so our goal is to not only get you that first job in the games industry, but through this process, make it so you can get in the industry and then stay there as long as you want.
Thank you, Dave. Nandini, would you like to add more to what it means? What does hands-on learning mean? And also maybe give us some example of what Dave was talking about on the industry partnerships.
Yeah, sure. And I thank everyone, professors who already kind of spoken about the topics that are covered in our courses, and also the kind of team-based approach that we follow in our curriculum. Um, I would say like the portfolio review is one additional feature where students start working on it starting from their sophomore years. And we have these regular meetups where the professors kind of give you feedback on how to improve your work. So every year you keep working on this, getting feedback. We also have a few student chapters like the SIGGRAPH, the Women in Animation, Women in Games chapters, where students keep showcasing their work in progress and get peer feedback. That's another avenue for this hands-on work that we push for the culture, and also being able to provide the support and feedback. One new feature is the student showcase that we are planning for this semester, the spring. So students will be showcasing their work through coursework or personal independent projects. We are planning to have industry professionals come in and jury them. So those are some of the examples of how, like, yes, you can make games in high school, but we do provide the technology, the support from faculty who worked in the industry. Like I've worked for DreamWorks before, so we introduce you to the pipeline, the kind of studio culture, and also we have great alumni connection. They have frequent speakers coming up. So those are the highlights that I'd like to add on to what's already been spoken about.
Thank you, Nandini. I love those connections, and that is very, very true. So
Yeah.
it's great that you mentioned portfolios, but let's kind of put a pin on that topic, because we're going to talk about that later. Dave, do students need to have experience with anything in particular? Like maybe a specific programming language before they start in game development at Purdue, or can they start from scratch and learn everything they will need to know during their time at Purdue?
That's a really good question. I would say it depends. If if you are an artist, um, we're very technically oriented. We can make you a better artist in that we can help you understand how to make something beautiful that can actually run at the required frame rate to play on a game. So we teach you different optimizations. Like you have the eye for the beauty. You bring that with you. Um, and then we help you make that beauty into something that's functional. And that's how we can help artists. So if you're thinking of that track, my advice is, if you are already an artist, we can make you a better artist. If you are not an artist, we can't. Okay. That's just the truth. Um, Now that said, that's the only thing it applies to. For people who are interested in maybe programming, level design, storytelling, um, just game design in general, you can kind of start with nothing, and we'll take you the whole path. It helps if you're a little bit familiar with programming because it just makes it an easier lift. But our programming classes assume you don't know anything, and we're gonna get you where you need to go. It's just the art where we do want to urge you to, like, you should only come here as an artist if you're already pretty good at it.
Okay, thank you. Aiden, you're majoring in animation and visual effects. How would you answer that question for students in your major? How much of a background did you have when you first came to Purdue, nearly 2 years ago?
Yeah, one thing that made me nervous about coming to here at the Polytechnic was that I thought it was going to be very like technically oriented, which it kind of is, but not really. You can definitely play to your strengths. So, honestly, in most of the classes that I've taken, especially in my freshman year, they really give you the foundations that you need, as well as like all of the applications that you will be using on a daily basis. Like they show you step by step how to use them. So if you're walking in with maybe some knowledge, but not a lot, have no concerns. Like I walked in knowing the Adobe suite and I had no idea how to 3D model. And now like I love 3D modeling. So they'll definitely give you the tools that you need.
And did you say you have a minor in the art and design or?
Yeah, I have a
Yes.
minor in art and design.
Okay, so then is your art getting a little bit better too?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if
Okay.
you have any interest in like the fine arts or anything like that, I highly recommend like getting a minor or even doing the Degree Plus program. It's great.
Okay, thank you. All right. Derek, would you say that that's fairly typical for students in the animation major or for high school seniors who perhaps do not have any particular experience? Should they consider using some of their free time this summer to prepare, like in a specific way for starting at Purdue this fall?
Yeah. So any students are welcome to reach out to the area specific faculty. If you're interested in animation or games or everything. There are, as Dan was saying, a number of us who provide tutorials online. We can point you in various directions depending on what it is you want to learn or specialize in. Um, and that can range. I'm animation specific, so I'm talking about Harmony, Maya, Blender. Um, yeah, so if you do want to use your time this summer to gain some of those skills, we can each of us area specific faculty can point you in a number of different directions, and that's a great idea between now and the fall.
Thank you. I just want to remind the audience, if you have any questions, please, you can, submit your questions and we'll try to get those as well. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about technology in general, as it relates to these two majors. Nandini, even though my profession is very different from yours, I have certainly heard buzzwords like virtual reality, augmented reality, and the metaverse. What opportunities are provided to our students here in the CGT department to develop expertise in cutting edge technologies like these?
As previously mentioned, we do teach the core gaming technologies and the skills that are needed, not just to be successful in the gaming industry, but also being able to diversify and apply it in, say, like a medical simulation company or looking into first responders. So there are students who are graduated from our programs who move on to non-gaming applied like research and scientific visualization industries, and they've been quite successful with it. We have professors doing research work in VR and AR applied applications, and I teach a course on design futures, And this is all about students with background in gaming as well as in user experience. They designed a metaverse experience for like college sports. So that's one of the examples of what kind of projects you'll be working on once you're here with us.
Okay, thank you. Now we have two questions from the audience. I'm gonna Magnetic Pants, I think is their name, and they have a question for game and development design. They want to know, what about someone that wants to do both? They want to do the art and the programming. What if they want to be a good artist and also want to be a good programmer? What would you say on
Um,
that? Go ahead.
Magnetic Pants, I have good news for you. There is a specific role in the games industry called technical artist. And these folks are half programmer, half artist. And what they do a lot of is, gosh, they do a lot of things. But to boil it down, um, essentially, because you know art, you know what the workflow is like to make some like a 3D model or a matte painting in the background, or something arty that I can't do. Um, you know that because you've done it and you're pretty good at it, but you also know how to write code. And so the technical artist is often coming up with cool tools that help make the art process smoother. Maybe you're writing a plugin for Maya that exports something in a particular way or imports something in a particular way. Um, or you're writing tools to help artists, like desktop tools to help artists like put things into the pipeline more efficiently. And part two of this good news is that CGT, we're pretty good at this. It's kind of our strength. Technical art, technical design are areas that our students tend to do very well in the games marketplace. There's simply not enough tech artists and tech designers out there to satisfy the demand, because usually people are either one or the other. And so the people who are good at both usually can just walk right into tech art positions or
Okay.
tech design positions.
All right, Dan has his hand up. Go
I
for it.
do. Well, this is also a topic that I should chime in on. I'm teaching within animation VFX games, and there's a lot of students that actually are in games. They double major in games and animation. And I would actually say if you think you're like more in the art direction, um, but you still like want to focus on games, I would definitely suggest if you can pull that off to double major in the two, and a lot of our students do that. You're going to get more artistically um, based classes in the animation program than, or I should say, at least in the animation like required classes. They'll be more artistic, but then the games will have more of the technical stuff that gets you into the game engines and how can you implement those art assets into the game engines. So I would for sure go that track, and it is possible to be a good artist and be good programmers too. I'm thinking of Anna Hardy. We had a student named Anna Hardy, and she was she was actually a CS minor, but she was doing procedural modeling in Houdini as an artist in the game program. So she did really, really well. And, she had some great internships and stuff like that too. So it's possible. So don't ever just discount yourself. It's a lot of work, but the payoff is amazing.
Wonderful. Thank you. I was going to say, and I think Aiden kind of referred to a little bit about Degree Plus, and that is a partnership that we have with the College of Liberal Arts right now, where they have waived all the core requirements, and you can get a major, a Bachelor of Arts in Liberal Arts through Degree Plus, and they waive all the core requirements, and all you do is take the classes related to the major. And they say it can still be done in 4.5 years. So that's another possibility as well. Okay, I have another question from the audience. For the game development major, they want to know, will there be AI courses that students can take that relates to games?
So, yes, and as let's see, let me read the actual question. Vacation, is this your question?
No, it's from the audience. They wanted to know, will there
Yeah,
will
but
there be AI courses that students can take which relate to games?
well, I mean, the questioner goes by the name of vacation, I think.
Oh, vacation,
Yes,
vacation.
so let me just so AI, as we understand it, sort of pre 2023, is the creatures or the other people in the game that are controlled by the computer do clever things, and then we get in fights with them, or they're our wingman or whatever. But now, when we think AI, we think of things like Chat GPT and Stable Diffusion and all these the hideous pictures of people with too many fingers and stuff like that that look almost good. Um, but that is definitely an area we are going to get into more. I specifically have a research project that I'm spinning up that I'm really excited about, where I intend to use AI to help with some animation and modeling. I'm really hungry for smart students to help me with this.
Okay.
We also have more faculty that will be joining the Polytechnic in the years ahead. But I can't talk too much about that because that's HR stuff. But let's just say that it's a high priority for CGT to have more AI faculty. How about that?
Wonderful. Okay, thanks, Dave. So let's talk about software and computers used in these majors. Alex, would you please tell us about how some of the software and other technology that students use here at Purdue is the same that they will encounter after they graduate?
Yeah, for sure. I'm actually going to piggyback on something Nandini said earlier.
Okay.
So um, another thing is this is sort of my soapbox, is how does Purdue differentiate itself from other academic institutions? Is all of the people you're seeing here do research, um, and all of the faculty. Now, what's interesting is the tools you'll use: Unity, Unreal, the VR headsets, the AR headsets. The education at Purdue is more holistic rather than single serving. Like, you might go to some teaching schools and they're focusing on game development. Well, you're learning all the same core concepts behind game development and how to use those tools to make a game. But you can also apply those to things like simulations. Like, if I could talk about my own research, I'm doing a project now that uses Unity, it uses character modeling, it uses animation to treat PTSD in the Detroit Police Department. And we're using a HoloLens with augmented reality. Okay, so why is that important? If you go to a teaching school where the faculty aren't doing like cutting edge research, you won't have the opportunity to necessarily work on an actual project that is in the simulations realm or in the realm outside of just game development. And as like Dan had mentioned earlier, and he's got a massive breadth of background in the game industry. So does Nandini, Derek, and David he's a programmer at a game studio during the summer, and so he keeps that stuff going. So the entertainment stuff, if you're coming here for that, is always here. And like I said, just sorry to be redundant, the exact same hardware and software you would use is to create games like Mortal Kombat are the same things you would use to create a PTSD project that would treat Detroit police personnel. And the last thing I want to bring up is, if you come to Purdue and you work on a project like that, or you work on some sort of research project with these faculty, you have a different kind of thing to add to your portfolio rather than just the student run project. So
Wonderful, Alex. Thank you. I know you mentioned Unity, but there is a question in the audience. They want to know, what software will primarily be used for game development and what software will be used for 3D modeling? Is it different?
I could dive in there and then feel free to jump in, Dan and Dave. I mean, overall, it's Maya as your 3D application. I mean, they do allow a certain level of flexibility. We use Unreal and Unity, but I also want to piggyback on something else about the AI question that was asked. And whenever you're making a game, there's a level of AI that exists throughout the entire game development pipeline, whether it's just having a character detect another character or see another character and a text box appears. So even though um, you might not necessarily, I mean, as David alluded, there's going to be AI pure courses that are sort of being designed, but like you're always learning AI within that coursework. And sorry, I just wanted to throw that out there to answer that previous question. But yeah, Dan or Dave, if you want to talk a little bit more about software, if that didn't answer the question.
You want me to go first? I'll go first. We usually, for a game engine, we usually use Unreal. But that being said, if somebody decided that for whatever reason that they wanted to use Unity, there are actually things that Unity does better. Um, it's not like that's impossible to use, but like on our computers for our labs, that Unreal is there. Uh, for the modeling, I teach the geometric modeling, like the first geometric modeling course, and I do teach my class in Maya. However, I don't, if a student comes in with Blender experience, I don't tell them that they can't use Blender because realistically, when it comes to modeling, a lot of the tools, there's a couple outlier programs, but most of the programs are very, very similar. They just kind of have a different way of doing it or a different button, if you will. So I also teach ZBrush, which is a digital sculpting tool. I teach Houdini, which is a visual effects tool. I teach the Substance Suite, which is for authoring materials. Um, I teach Agisoft Metashape, which is for doing photogrammetry. There's a plethora. I mean, and there's way more than that, honestly. In Photoshop, there's all kinds of different things that we use. But we typically usually teach the industry standards. That's kind of what I would focus on.
Okay, thank you. Um, Dave, would you please tell us about some of the labs or the laboratory equipment and software that we have here that students in either the games or animation majors will be using?
I don't see Dave. I wonder if his
His
feed.
audio was lost. He lost his audio, so he's trying to fix it.
Oh,
Oh,
So,
did
okay.
he?
yeah.
Okay, what,
I can talk about that. I can talk
okay,
about
would
that.
someone
That's
else then talk about that, please? And
Yeah,
then
I'm on my third lab that I'm helping to plan.
okay,
And so I know a lot about hardware, and I'm also a camera person too. I do photography and videography and stuff like that. I'm in so many things really. But we're actually right now looking to build a new virtual lab. We had a virtual lab, but it had gotten outdated, meaning that the kind of stuff that they're doing at Disney with The Mandalorian, where they have like the volume. Now, we're not going to have a whole entire volume like they have because it's probably cost $1 billion to build one of those. But they have now systems where you actually have a camera that's tracked by Vive cubes. And we're going to have stuff where we can composite and move cameras and have a live feed that goes right to Unreal so that we can do like a virtual set. I teach a class for photorealistic shaders, and we do photogrammetry in that class as well as work in Substance and uh, some other Photoshop and stuff like that. But in that class, you get your hands on the cameras, and so these are very, very high level professional cameras that you get to work with. And then of course I'm an expert in it, so I will teach you how to use it and how to acquire this. If anybody's familiar with like Unreal and Quixel, that's it's a big thing about scanning is a big deal nowadays because people are going all over the world. Quixel sends people all over the world, and they're owned by Epic, and they scan all kinds of things so that you can use it in your game levels. And I actually teach you from the ground up how do you do that yourself with professional equipment. Dave, do you want to add in anything?
I lost connection for a little bit.
Oh,
So
okay.
I only caught the tail end when you were talking about cameras.
Yeah, we're just talking about equipment. And am I getting that right? It was just equipment question, right? Like, what are we using?
Yeah, what kind of equipment? But let me ask you, we're getting a lot of questions from the audiences now, from the audience now. And so one of the questions, lots of the viewers want to know about computers, software, hardware, including what they have access to on campus. What kind of computer should they bring? You know,
Yeah.
those types of things. So maybe you can, answer that question at this time as well.
So I write the documents for our department as far as the hardware and like suggestions to students. So I actually get a lot of emails. And because I'm on my third lab now that I'm going to be outfitting. Every time we outfit a new lab, the computers we get faster and faster and faster. So the first lab that I worked on, which was about 5 years ago, 64 gigs of RAM, 12 core Intel's, 1080 Ti graphics cards. And then now the next lab that I just picked out the computers for, which just started, we just opened this year. We have 3090 graphics cards. I want to say there's 16 core Intels and 128 gigs of RAM. And now we're going to be building another lab for the virtual labs, and that's going to have at least 4090s in there, 128 gigs of RAM, and maybe a 24 core. I'm not sure. We haven't finalized on those computers yet, so we'll have to see what's going on with that. So I don't want to promise anybody that, but I do know we'll go for the 4090 graphics card. So every time a lab gets updated, usually we get a lot better equipment. And there are going to be other labs that are within our department where they don't have as high-end equipment, but typically the game, animation, and VFX students are using the highest end labs in our department because we require the most computational power.
Excellent.
Oh, and there was a
Actually, the
second part of
most
that question. The second part was what should they get? Do you want me
Yes,
to
that's
answer
the
that
one.
now, or do you
Yeah,
want me?
if you
Okay,
have that answer, if anybody
okay.
has, they want to know
So,
what computer on their, would you recommend for them to get if they were gonna get their own computer?
um, hopefully this doesn't sound like too much technical jargon, but I would say number one, get a computer with a dedicated graphics card. Okay. Do Unless if you were like in user experience UI or something like that, or maybe just web development, you can get a Mac if you want. But if you're in games, VFX, or animation, you want to make sure you have an NVIDIA graphics card, number one, no matter what. Because NVIDIA has a special technology in there called CUDA cores, and those CUDA cores accelerate a lot of the programs, and a lot of the programs are building their architecture to use these CUDA cores to speed up the processes that they do. The second thing I would say, and a lot of people probably overlook this, is make sure you have at least 32 gigabytes of RAM. It seems you might think that's a lot, but it's really not. It's really not anymore because these programs keep getting bigger and bigger, and so they're computationally they suck up more juice, if you will. It's just memory. It's random access memory. But I would say get that, and then of course for the CPU, I'd get as many cores as you can, but like if you get at least 12 core CPU, I would go with something like that at the very least. I actually put more importance a lot of times on the RAM and the graphics card, and the CPU is important too. It depends on what you're doing. For games, the CPU is not as important. For VFX, the CPU is very important, and animation kind of lives right in the middle. So.
Thank you.
I would just add whatever video card you get, this is really important. Make sure it has RTX capability, and that stands for real-time ray tracing in the hardware acceleration. This is the new standard. It's not just something that's faster than the other one. It actually has additional new circuitry that doesn't exist pre 3000 series RTX. So you definitely want to get a 3000 series NVIDIA or higher, and
Thank you.
make sure it has RTX. That's critical.
Okay. All right. We're getting a lot of questions from the audience, but before I do that, I want to mention one of our current students, Brantley McCord, graciously joined us in the chat room, and he's helping answer some of your questions. So just be patient with us, and thank you, Brantley, for doing that. Let's see, the first one, Robert Barr, he wants to know, or maybe she, will we work at all with different hardware other than PCS, home consoles or handhelds? I'm just reading the question. Dan, I can't hear you.
Can you repeat the question one more time? I'm not even seeing it in the
Okay.
chat.
Will we work with all different hardware other than personal computers, home consoles, handhelds?
I'm gonna let Dave answer that one. I would say most of the time it is computers, most of the time. But it's not to say that we do have VR sets. It's possible to build to mobile platforms. I mean, everyone's got a phone typically. So Dave, you want
We
to add in?
yeah, I would say for the most part we do not. Um, the nice thing is we do almost everything in Unreal Engine at the undergraduate level, and Unreal Engine out of the box can run in multiple hardware environments.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
yeah.
Okay, another question from Chor. He says, will graduates be capable of becoming software developers of software in other fields, not just games? I think you kind of answered that.
Yes. Yes, definitely. A lot of our students will go into other domains other than games,
Okay.
especially the
How
programmers.
Okay, how much of the whole process of game design is touched upon? Will things like sound design, writing narratives, ethics in game design, etc., be touched upon as well? And this is from Penny.
I feel like I'm hogging the stage. We touch on game art, game scripting, and game design, and game production, which is small team leadership. But that's an elective. You don't have to do that. You do have to do the other three. That said, we also have game audio courses and a bunch of animation courses that the game students are can always take. And you can even take classes outside of CGT that interest you. So the things like game ethics, Samantha Blackman in the English department, she does some really, really engaging stuff with game ethics and game narrative and things like that. Her and I work together on a lot of things. I'm looking at the question here. Writing narratives, yeah, that's still an English thing. And then you say the whole process, and we do like to focus on the whole process and have multidisciplinary teams of people who do different parts of the process. So yeah, we definitely touch on the whole process.
Okay, thank you. Derek, one of the hallmarks of the Polytechnic is that students have opportunities to gain real world experience. How do they accomplish that? You know, I know they build a portfolio in the class, but what else? Future employers, what is it that they're doing?
There's a number of things that Purdue students can do that's unique. So, for one, undergraduates can work for uh, any particular faculty member on research projects. I myself, I've hired about 4 in the last year, 4 undergraduates to work hourly. You can make an hourly wage and work, say on a large animation. The other thing is juniors are encouraged to seek out internships, and faculty will help prepare students with their portfolios. And right now, students are uh, let's say the application season is typically February for a May-June internship. Um, so I have many students right now who are polishing up their online portfolios, etc., So there are a number of avenues to take. Maybe Dan is, I don't know if I missed anything, Dan, who's been here a lot longer than me.
Okay.
No, I think you covered.
Okay.
Okay,
Not
great.
to divert, but you're good. Yeah, that was good.
I'm going
Okay.
to go to Aiden. We haven't heard from her in a little while. You have very near, you almost completed 2 years as a Purdue student, right? Would you please tell us about one or more of your favorite class projects or real world experiences so far, and what makes it memorable for you?
Yeah, I can touch on both. So presently I am working on a project called the Stairwell Project. I'm actually working with Geary and with another staff member called Esteban Garcia. And it's been a really cool opportunity. I've been doing like concept art as well as like doing some animations. I'll be working on it over the summer with them, which I'm really excited about. So that's just a little bit of like the real world experience I'm getting right now, as well as my favorite class is probably one I'm taking currently. It's CGT 390. Professor Larson actually teaches it. The entire class is essentially acting as a studio. So we went through like pitches literally like the first day. And then we picked an idea, we ran with it, we made a script, a storyboard. Currently we're doing like character animations for it and it should be finishing up pretty soon. So that's really exciting. But yeah, it was a really unique class and I'm really fortunate to have taken it.
Okay, thank you, Aiden. Nandini, since we're talking about real world experiences, what about internships? Do we require internships, or at the very least, do you recommend students pursuing at least one? Please share.
Mhm. Yeah, so we do recommend internships, and I believe there's like a work credit where students can get credits for working, for a company maybe over summer, or even volunteering through research projects with different faculty here. One example I'd like to share is we've been talking a lot about having industry standard software here and the kind of training we provide. And last semester, my grad students actually had a project sponsored by a company which is providing a metaverse content development platform. So we had industry people looking into students' pitch, providing feedback, and then we also had a Slack channel and our own software setup to be able to connect with their servers. So this was a semester-long project where professionals were providing feedback through different milestones, and then the final project was up running on their live metaverse platform. So that's one example. But in terms of opportunities, we also have a coordinator in our department who is speaking with different recruiters from companies so that they can have their information session here, talk more about their internships, so that as Purdue University, like students have their own system of being able to talk to these recruiters, ask them questions, and get their resumes reviewed by them. And probably Dave can talk more about like the experiential education that we have here and the kind of project, the studio experience that we are now focusing on. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Um,
Yeah,
Go ahead.
go ahead, Abe. Oh, I thought, sorry. Yeah, we, I have a project, a company that I run here called Fledgling Media, and I hire students for course credit, not real money, but to come work. It's an honors class, so you've got to really earn it to even get in there. But you can work at Fledgling Media and make real live commercial games that um, are going to go out to the marketplace, and you'll have your name in the credits, and you are held to an extraordinarily high standard of quality, and it's a blast. And you get to work in my cool lab, which
Okay,
you should see the
thank you.
pictures of. I'll get a picture and post it in the chat.
Wonderful. I have I was going to ask Aiden, have you applied for internships? tell us a little bit about that process. And then some other questions are pertaining to the job market in animation and games. But Aiden, can you share a little bit about the process?
Yes. So I probably applied to like too many internships, but I got a bite, so it was worth it. I'm working for Sky Elements this summer. We're designing a drone show for our Boiler Gold Rush, which is our freshman orientation program. The last drone show that they did was for like the Super Mario movie, so it's kind of really cool that I'll be working with a company like that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I've got Derek and Alex. What kind of careers do graduates from our animation and visual effects find? And then Alex for the game development and design. What types of jobs?
Well,
Sure.
oh,
Derek,
sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Okay. Uh, well, for animators, there are so many, and if you are watching Netflix now, you'll notice there's more and more animated content being made here in the U.S. So animation studios are popping up everywhere. You can work as a 3D modeler, technical director, uh, VFX compositor. You can work at DreamWorks, Disney, Pixar. But there are so many, and this is skewed because of what I do. So many 2D animation studios popping up, like Bento Box in LA and Atlanta. Um, so many in Atlanta tied to the film industry moving there, but Cartoon Network and Adult Swim with studios like Floyd County and Awesome Inc. and School of Humans. Um, there are just so many available, and you can typically follow where the film industry is. So LA, of course, Atlanta. There are a number in Vancouver. Um, yeah.
Okay. Alex for game development and design.
Yeah, so in my intro to game course last semester, I had this really cool activity where we would go and pick a game studio, whether it was Riot Games or Blizzard or whatever. And if you're in LinkedIn, you can actually go to the top of the LinkedIn page, and in the search field, you can type Purdue University and, or type the name of a studio. So for example, Disney Interactive or Disney. And then you hit search, and when that comes up, there's a list of people, uh, jobs, all this other stuff. If you click the people button and you just type in Purdue, you can see all of the past graduates who went to that studio. And so this was an activity that I did just to show them and inspire them that a lot of these people are going to be the ones you're going to be networking with in the future. And then we do an actual activity where they email somebody. Most of them, I want to say about 80%, actually got feedback from them, because these are people who went to Purdue. They understand the rigor behind the curriculum, and they've been through the process, so they're more likely to talk to you. Um, and I mean, just to not, like Derek mentioned, a lot of these really amazing studios that a lot of our students work at. So there's all of these big time studios, as well as, as we mentioned, we've had students go on to, Florida and work in simulations. Again, same tools. So that's
Gotcha.
what I would advise you to do with any of the schools you decide to go to is find a studio that you like and see if they have people from that school working at that studio.
Wonderful, thank you. Now, I know in my job, I talk to a lot of parents, and when they say that, and they say, I'm concerned, my son or daughter is in animation, will they be able to find a job? So David, what's the job market like in either animation or games for students today?
I can't speak to animation, but I can speak to games. The general rule is if you're a programmer, you nearly always can find a job, a good job somewhere. The games industry is pretty competitive. You've got to be really good, but there are always jobs, and so that is definitely a great place to be. But game design is um, not as like I'd say the most competitive, and this is more for Dan and Derek. Um, the art, it can be pretty competitive. Design is somewhere in the middle between programming and art in terms of like how many jobs are available.
Okay, thank you. Okay, believe it or not, it's almost 8 o'clock. And before we wrap up, let's talk about being successful as a college student. Aiden, let's start with you. How do you find a good balance between studying and life at Purdue?
Yeah, definitely. One thing that really helps is that all of your professors will give you a syllabus at the beginning of the semester. And majority of the time they either have a schedule or they have all of the assignments and when they're due. Getting those in your calendar early is a really good and helpful thing. I learned to stay on track as well as kind of figuring out when I have time to like hang out with my friends, when I have time to like, you know, do fun things around campus. So that has been very helpful.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to ask the different faculty members about maybe some advice. Alex, would you like to share some advice for future students?
Yeah, I think forming a relationship with your faculty is the most important thing, especially if you're interested in getting a gig when you graduate. All of these people that you're looking at up here have industry contacts, and not just local industry contacts. Like, I mean, Nandini, Dan, David, they've all worked at AAA studios. And like, I'll share a story. I was in a department meeting, and the director from a director at DreamWorks that is actually my mentor at a studio I was at knew Nandini. So it's like an amazing, like Nandini and I were just kind of chatting. We didn't even know that. And so the other part of it is kind of pivoting from there is like, don't be don't be that student who's kind of confrontational, angry, mean. Be cool, be open. It's a small industry. And I had a friend of mine, Sean Fennell, like who I went to Columbia College with back in 1997, who is now the crowd director at DreamWorks. And like he remembered me because I mean, I was the nicest guy in the world to him, just because I'm the nicest guy in the world. So
Thank you. And
Can
see, he's
confirm.
going to be a nice professor. Okay. Nandini, what advice do you have?
Um, I would say, like one of the strengths of the CGT department here is that we have these different majors, like whether it be in modeling or texture surfacing, you have the game design, the visualization. So really look at how things connect as a pipeline, because it's important for you to really specialize in the things that you are passionate about, but also seeing those connections, like where does that skill fit in the whole industry. And I think our department is one kind of example that actually shows all those different connections that all talks about entertainment, but it's still connected. So, come here with an open mind and just, network and get as much as possible from the environment.
Thank you. Dan, it's your turn.
Ooh, this is a good question. I would say one of the things that made me very successful in my career, even in school, was I gave myself the time to work. And what I mean is that the stuff that I felt important, like that I really like the art stuff, because I'm an artist, like the art stuff that I really wanted to do, I made sure I just allowed myself to keep to work on it, and sometimes into the late night, sometimes, I don't know how many hours the other students were putting in, but I know I was putting in, I might be putting in 30 hours a week on just my homework. And that I was enjoying it, and I was passionate, so that wasn't hard to put a bunch of work into it like that. Um, but I think that's also how you get your expertise, because if you spend the time, you have to make all kinds of mistakes. You have to find out what works, what doesn't work. And I think that you need to approach it like, this is what I do, and I'm just going to allow I need to, whatever time it takes me to evolve through this and get better is the time that I have to take. And sometimes, like Aiden was saying, I try to schedule myself so I can spend time with my friends. It is important to spend time with your friends, but sometimes that might only be one night a week. Maybe you work the rest of the week, and I think that if you allow yourself to do that, then when you get out of school, at least it was the case for me, I got a job immediately. I think because I allowed myself the time to actually really start becoming an expert. This stuff takes time to learn. It doesn't, you don't just plug in like the Matrix and kung fu. It doesn't work that way. You have to actually like just go through all this fumbling and working on it. And it can be tedious sometimes, but when you get good at it, it's so fun. So even to this day, I still spend a ton of time on my work because I love it. But the better you get, the more you love it. So which is a nice side effect.
Yeah, great advice. And David, the final word goes to you. How can students be successful at Purdue?
Keep in mind, develop a habit of excellence in everything you do. You may not realize it, but you are interviewing for a job with every class you take and with every assignment you do. When you turn in something good, the professors take note of it. And we are really hungry to put our strongest students in front of our industry people and get them jobs. Um, A, we love to see you be successful, but B, the more successful you are, the more successful the program is, and then the more successful everybody is. So whenever you get an assignment, and even if it seems trivial and like something like you're not in, you actually are. That assignment is an interview, and treat it with care. And just whatever you do, always be excellent. Is put your all into it. It'll pay off.
Great advice. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone. That concludes our discussion tonight. Thanks again to all of you for watching and for submitting your questions. And we hope you learned something new about the animation and games majors within our Department of Computer Graphics Technology. Thanks to all of our panelists for joining us and sharing your wisdom and experience. And if you joined us late, be sure to watch the replay because we've covered a variety of different topics throughout the hour. Thanks to Brantley McCord for answering questions in the chat room, and also to John, our technical director, for all of the behind the scenes work. Now, as I mentioned before, please feel free to send an email to techrecruit@purdue.edu if you have any additional questions for us about CGT or about Purdue. You might enjoy seeing one or more of our other YouTube broadcasts. Coming up tomorrow night, April 12th, you can watch a live Q&A about student life at Purdue for all students admitted to the Polytechnic majors. Replays of other broadcasts focusing on women in technology, diversity in the Polytechnic are also available. All the broadcasts are listed online at polytechnic.purdue.edu/live. Just a quick reminder, the deadline to accept your offer of admissions is May 1st. If you're thinking though about a learning community, the deadline for that is April 15th. And thanks again for being here tonight. Have a great evening and boiler up. Take care.